Captain Zthar stood on the bridge of his warship, watching the stars through the main viewing screen. His long tail swished behind him as he studied the data on his command console. The reptilian captain had scales that gleamed dark green under the ship's lights. His yellow eyes showed no fear, only hunger for conquest. The Void Stalker was one of the finest ships in the Vorac Hegemony fleet. Its hull was thick armor plating that could stop most weapons. The ship carried enough firepower to destroy a small moon. Behind Zthar, his crew worked at their stations with military precision. They were all Vorthacs, all warriors, all ready for battle. "Captain," said his tactical officer, Lieutenant Vasctor, "we are approaching the human border. Their warning beacons are getting stronger." Zthar made a sound that was part laugh, part growl. "Warning beacons? How pathetic. What do they say?" Vasctor checked his screen. "The usual weak words. Turn back. Do not enter. Contact the diplomatic station for permission to visit. The message repeats in 47 different languages." 47 languages, Zthar said with disgust. "They try to please everyone. This shows how weak they are. A strong species speaks one language and makes others learn it." The captain walked to the front of the bridge. Through the viewing screen, he could see the edge of human space. There were no mighty fortresses here, no fleets of warships guarding the border. Just empty space with a few small warning beacons floating in the void. The Vorac Hegemony had conquered 17 star systems in the past 50 years. Every species they met had tried to fight them. Every species had lost. The Vorthacs were natural warriors. Their thick scales could stop bullets. Their claws could tear through metal. Their ships were the most advanced in this part of the galaxy, or so they thought. "Captain," called the communications officer, "the other ships are ready for your orders." Zthar looked at his fleet. 3 ships total. The Void Stalker was the largest, a heavy cruiser built for war. The Sharp Fang was a destroyer, fast and deadly. The Blood Moon was another cruiser, smaller than his ship but still powerful enough to level a city. Intel reports said human space was poorly defended. The humans had spread across many worlds, but they had no central military. Each planet defended itself. Their technology was old and simple. Their weapons were weak. Their ships were slow. This would be easy. "All ships, follow my lead," Zthar ordered into his communicator. "We cross the border now. Target the mining colony called Haven's Rest. Intelligence says it has valuable resources and only light defenses." The 3 Vorthac ships moved forward. They passed the warning beacons without slowing down. The automated messages kept playing, but no one was listening. Zthar felt the thrill of the hunt. Soon he would have slaves working the mines for the hegemony. Soon, human worlds would bow before Vorthac might. Soon his name would be known across the galaxy as the captain who opened human space to conquest. On his personal screen, he began recording a message for the Hegemony Command. "This is Captain Zthar of the Void Stalker. We have entered human space without resistance. Their border defenses are exactly as pathetic as our intelligence predicted. I see mining stations and farm worlds with no military protection. The humans appear to have no real fleet, no fortifications, and no warrior spirit." He paused the recording to check his sensors. His tactical officer was right. The nearest human military base was weeks away according to their star charts. By the time any help arrived, the Vorthacs would have taken everything they wanted. "Resume. Recording," Zthar said. "I expect to have complete control of this sector within 7 standard days. The humans seem to be exactly what we hoped. Weak, scattered, and unprepared for real war. Zthar out." The captain felt proud of himself. This would be the easiest conquest in Vorthac history. What Zthar did not know was that his ships had been detected the moment they crossed the border. Hidden sensors, invisible to Vorthac technology, had been tracking them since they entered the system. Across human space, quiet alerts were already going out. The humans had learned many things in their centuries among the stars. One of the most important lessons was this: the best defense often looks like no defense at all. Deep in space, Commander Sarah Chen sat in the captain's chair of her ship, the Nightfall. Around her, the bridge was dark and quiet. Her crew worked at their stations without making a sound. The ship itself was invisible to most sensors. It was a ghost in the void. 3 bogies confirmed, whispered her sensor officer. Heavy cruiser, destroyer, and medium cruiser, Vorac design. They're heading straight for Haven's Rest. Chen nodded. Alert the colony, make sure they know help is coming, and send word to Captain Rodriguez on the Defiant. Tell him we have customers. The Nightfall was a stealth destroyer, one of humanity's most advanced ships. It could hide from almost any sensor system. It could move without being detected. It was the perfect ship for watching uninvited guests. Chen had been hunting in space for 20 years. She had fought in the AI wars. She had defended human colonies from pirates and raiders. She knew how to track prey without being seen. The Vorthax thought they were the hunters. They had no idea they had become the hunted. On Haven's Rest, the mining foreman Marcus Webb received the alert with a grim smile. He was a big man with gray hair and scars on his hands from years of hard work. He had been a soldier before he became a miner. He knew what war looked like. "Boys," he called to his crew over the comm system, "we've got company coming. 3 Vorthax ships. Looks like they want to play rough." The miners stopped their work and looked up from their machines. They were tough people who worked in space. Every day, they did not scare easily. "What's the plan, boss?" asked Jenny Martinez, his second in command. "Same as always," Webb said. "We keep working and let the Navy handle the visitors. But be ready to get to the shelters if things get messy." Webb walked to his office and activated the colony's defense systems. Warning lights came on around the mining platform. Emergency. Doors sealed automatically. The few weapons they had powered up. It was not much, but it did not need to be much. The real defenses were already on their way. Back on the Void Stalker, Zthar was getting impatient. "How long until we reach the mining colony?" 6 hours at current speed, Captain," his navigator replied. "Too slow. Increase speed. I want to get there before they have time to send for help." What Zthar did not realize was that help had already been sent for. Help had been sent for the moment his ships crossed the border. The captain spent the next few hours studying intelligence reports about humans. According to Vorthax spies, humans were weak fighters. They preferred to talk instead of fight. They had no real military tradition. They were merchants and farmers, not warriors. The report said human ships were slow and poorly armed. Human soldiers were cowards who would run at the first sign of real danger. Human colonies had no meaningful defenses. All of this information was wrong, but Zthar had no way to know that. The truth was that humans had been very careful about what information they let other species discover. They had spent decades making sure that potential enemies would underestimate them. It was working perfectly. As the Vorthax ships got closer to Haven's Rest, their sensors started acting strange. They would detect something for a moment. Then, it would disappear. They would get readings that made no sense, then everything would go back to normal. "What is wrong with our equipment?" Zthar demanded. His technical officer checked the systems. "I'm not sure, Captain. Everything appears to be working correctly. Perhaps human space has some kind of natural interference." The truth was much simpler. Human technology was interfering with their sensors. Ships they could not detect were jamming their equipment. The humans were already playing with them. When the Vorthax fleet finally reached Haven's Rest, they found exactly what they expected: a simple mining platform orbiting a dead planet. A few cargo ships moving slowly between the platform and the surface. No sign of military vessels. It looked helpless. It looked defenseless. It looked like easy prey. Zthar opened a communication channel to the mining platform. "Attention, human colony. This is Captain Zthar of the Vorac Hegemony. You are now under our control. Surrender. Immediately, and you will not be harmed. Resist, and we will destroy you. The response came quickly. It was the voice of an older human male, calm and relaxed. This is Marcus Webb, foreman of Haven's Rest. I'm afraid I can't do that, friend. This is human space, and you weren't invited. Zthar snarled. You have no choice, human. We have 3 warships. You have nothing. Surrender now, or face the consequences. Webb's reply made the Vorac captain's blood run cold. The human was laughing, actually laughing at him. Oh, I wouldn't say we have nothing, Webb said. In fact, I'd say you boys just made the biggest mistake in your species' entire history. But don't worry. Help is already on the way. Zthar cut the communication. He was angry now. How dare these weak humans laugh at him? How dare they refuse to surrender? Captain, said his tactical officer, I'm detecting some minor system problems across the fleet. Nothing serious, just small glitches. The problems started small. A navigation computer would freeze for a few seconds, then work normally. A communication system would produce static, then clear up. A weapon targeting system would lose lock on its target, then reacquire it. Nothing obviously dangerous. Nothing. That seemed like an attack. Just the kind of technical problems that sometimes happened in space. Except they were happening far too often to be normal. Zthar did not know it yet, but the humans were already inside his ship's computer systems. They were already taking control of his weapons, his engines, his life support. They were doing it so slowly and carefully that the Vorthax did not even notice. The captain of the Void Stalker thought he was in control. He thought he was the predator. He thought the humans were helpless prey waiting to be devoured. He was about to learn how wrong he could be. In the darkness of space around Haven's Rest, more than a dozen human ships waited in perfect silence. They were invisible to Vorthax sensors. They had been there for hours, waiting for their prey to arrive. The trap was set. The bait had been taken. Now it was time for the Vorthax to learn what it really meant to enter human space uninvited. Zthar stood on his bridge, looking at the mining platform through his viewing screen. In a few more minutes, he would give the order to attack. In a few more minutes, he would begin the conquest of human space. He had no idea that in a few more minutes, his entire understanding of the universe was about to change forever. 12 hours had passed since the Vorthax ships entered human space. Captain Zthar was beginning to feel uneasy, though he would never admit it to his crew. Something was wrong, but he could not figure out what. The Void Stalker and her 2 companion ships moved deeper into human territory. They passed several small outposts and mining stations. All of them looked defenseless. All of them sent the same kind of message when the Vorthax contacted them. This is human space. You were not invited. Please leave immediately. The humans never sounded afraid. They never begged for mercy. They just politely asked the Vorthax to go away, as if 3 heavily armed warships were no more dangerous than lost tourists. It was starting to make Zthar angry. Captain, said Lieutenant Vasktor from his tactical station, our sensors are still having problems. I keep detecting ships that aren't there. Zthar walked over to look at the display. For a moment, it showed 3 human vessels following them at long range. Then the contacts disappeared. A few minutes later, the sensors would show different ships in different positions. Then those would disappear too. It must be some kind of natural phenomenon, Zthar said. Human space probably has unusual magnetic fields or radiation that interferes with our equipment. Vasktor nodded, but he did not look convinced. Should I run a full diagnostic on the sensor array? Do it, but make it quick. I want our systems working perfectly when we attack Haven's Rest. What Zthar did not know was that the phantom contacts were real. Commander Sarah Chen's ship, the Nightfall, had been following them since they crossed the border. So had half a dozen other human vessels. They were all invisible to Vorthax sensors. Chen sat in her captain's chair, watching the alien ships on her screen. Her stealth destroyer was less than 1,000 kilometers behind the Vorthak fleet, but they had no idea she was there. "They're still heading for Haven's Rest," reported her tactical officer. "No change in course or speed." "Any response to our electronic warfare efforts?" Chen asked. Her communications officer smiled. "They think their sensor problems are natural interference. They have no idea we're jamming their equipment." Chen nodded. Human electronic warfare technology was decades ahead of anything the Vorthaks had. The aliens were flying blind and did not even know it. "Keep monitoring their communications," she ordered. "I want to know everything they're planning." The truth was that human ships had been watching the Vorthaks for months before they ever crossed the border. Intelligence agents had infiltrated Vorthak space. Spy satellites had monitored their military preparations. The humans knew exactly what the aliens were planning to do. They were ready. On the Void Stalker, the technical problems were getting worse. Navigation systems would randomly change course for a few seconds. Weapons would lose power, then come back online. Communications would cut out in the middle of conversations. "This is unacceptable," Zthar snarled. "How can we conquer anything if our own equipment doesn't work?" The chief engineer, a heavily scarred Vorthak named Grelthak, climbed up from the lower decks. "Captain, I've been checking our systems all morning. Everything appears to be in perfect working order. The problems seem to be coming from outside the ship." "Outside? What do you mean?" "I mean something is interfering with our electronics, something very sophisticated." Zthar's eyes narrowed. "Are you saying the humans are doing this?" Grelthak hesitated. "I don't know, Captain. But the interference patterns are too complex to be natural. They look almost like deliberate jamming." The captain laughed harshly. "Impossible. Our intelligence reports say human technology is primitive. They could not possibly interfere with Vorthak military systems." But deep down, Zthar was starting to wonder if their intelligence might be wrong. The answer came when they tried to contact one of their scout ships that had been sent ahead to check the route to Haven's Rest. "Sharp Fang, report your status," Zthar ordered into his communicator. Silence. "Sharp Fang, respond immediately." Still nothing. Vasktor checked his sensors. "Captain, I'm not detecting the Sharp Fang anywhere in this system." "What do you mean? Where did it go?" "I don't know, sir. It was there an hour ago. Then it just disappeared from our screens." Zthar felt a chill run down his spine. Vorthak ships did not just disappear. They were too well built, too heavily armored. If the Sharp Fang had been destroyed, there should have been wreckage. There should have been an explosion. There should have been some kind of distress signal. Instead, there was nothing at all. "Captain," called the communications officer. "I'm receiving a transmission from Haven's Rest. It's the human foreman again. Put him on screen." Marcus Webb's weathered face appeared on the main viewer. He was sitting in what looked like a simple office, drinking coffee from a metal cup. He did not look worried at all. "Captain Zthar," Webb said with a friendly smile. "How are you folks doing out there? Having any technical difficulties?" Zthar leaned forward in his chair. "How do you know about our technical problems?" "Oh, word gets around. You know how it is." "Where is our scout ship? What happened to the Sharp Fang?" Webb took a sip of his coffee. "Can't say I know anything about that. Maybe they decided to go home early. Space can be dangerous for folks who don't know their way around." The human's casual attitude made Zthar furious. "Listen to me, human. We are the Vorac Hegemony. We have conquered 17 star systems. We do not fear you." "I'm sure you don't," Webb said calmly. "But maybe you should start." The transmission cut off. Zthar stared at the blank screen. No human had ever spoken to him like that. No species had ever shown such disrespect to Vorthak power. "Captain," Vaskator said quietly, "I'm detecting something odd in the asteroid field near Haven's Rest." "What kind of odd?" "The asteroids are moving in formation, almost like they're ships pretending to be rocks." Zthar studied the sensor display. His tactical officer was right. The asteroids were too evenly spaced. They were moving too precisely. And some of them were giving off energy readings that rocks should not produce. It's a camouflage, he realized. Those aren't asteroids. They're human ships hiding among the rocks. For the first time since entering human space, Zthar felt something he had not experienced in years of conquest. He felt doubt. How many ships? He asked. Vasktor worked at his console for several minutes. I can't tell, Captain. Our sensors can't penetrate their camouflage completely. Could be a dozen, could be 50. Zthar made a decision. All ships, reduce speed. Prepare for possible combat. But as soon as he gave the order, more problems began. The Blood Moon reported that its main engines had shut down unexpectedly. The Void Stalker's weapons systems developed a targeting glitch that made them point in random directions. Captain, Grelthak called from the engineering station, someone is in our computer systems. They're controlling our ship remotely. That's impossible. Vorthak security. Protocols are unbreakable. Apparently not, sir. Whoever is doing this, they're very good at it. On the bridge of the Nightfall, Commander Chen watched her cyber warfare specialists work their magic. They had been inside the Vorthak computer systems for hours, learning everything they could about alien technology. We have complete access to their navigation, weapons, and communications, reported her technology officer. We could shut down their engines entirely if you give the order. Not yet, Chen said. Let them get a little closer first. I want them to understand exactly what kind of situation they're in. The Vorthaks were beginning to understand. As they approached Haven's Rest, more and more problems developed. Their shields flickered on and off. Their life support systems produced warning alarms for no apparent reason. Their artificial gravity shifted randomly, making the crew stumble around the decks. This is coordinated, Zthar realized. Someone is doing this to us deliberately. But who? Vasktor asked. The humans shouldn't have technology this advanced. The answer came when a new ship appeared on their sensors. It was sleek and gray, about half the size of the Void Stalker. It moved with impossible grace, dancing between the asteroids like a fish swimming through water. Unknown vessel. This is Captain Zthar of the Vorac Hegemony. Identify yourself. The response came immediately. This is Captain Rodriguez of the UES Defiant. You are trespassing in human space. You have 30 seconds to reverse course and leave our territory, or we will remove you ourselves. Zthar looked at the human ship on his screen. It was tiny, compared to his fleet. Its hull looked old and worn. Its weapons appeared to be standard laser cannons, nothing special. The Vorthak captain began to laugh. You're threatening us? One small ship against 3 heavy cruisers? 29 seconds, Rodriguez replied calmly. This is ridiculous. All ships target the human vessel. Prepare to fire. 28 seconds. Zthar was about to give the order to attack when his weapons officer reported a problem. Captain, our targeting systems won't lock onto the human ship. Every time I try to aim at them, the weapons point somewhere else. Override the computer. Fire manually. I'm trying, sir, but the controls aren't responding. 27 seconds, came Rodriguez's voice. Zthar realized that the humans had complete control of his ship's systems. They could make his weapons fire wherever they wanted. They could shut down his engines. They could turn off his life support. His mighty warship had become a helpless target. 26 seconds. Wait, Zthar called out. We need to discuss this. 25 seconds. Around him, his crew was starting to panic. The Vorthaks were natural warriors, but they had never faced an enemy they could not fight. How do you battle someone who controls your own weapons? 24 seconds. The captain of the Void Stalker looked at his tactical display. His ship was surrounded by hidden human vessels. His computers were completely compromised. His weapons would not obey his commands. For the first time in his military career, Captain Zthar was completely helpless. 23 seconds, said the calm voice of Captain Rodriguez. Zthar finally understood. The humans had not been caught off guard by his attack. They had been waiting for it. They had prepared for it. They had turned his own technology against him. The hunters had become the hunted. The countdown continued in Captain Rodriguez's calm voice. 22 seconds. Captain Zthar felt sweat forming on his scaled forehead. Around him, his bridge crew waited for orders that he could not give. His weapons would not fire. His Baikonur engines would not respond. His ship was trapped like an animal in a cage. 21 seconds. All right, Zthar said quickly. We will leave human space. Just give us time to turn around. 20 seconds. The human captain was not stopping. The countdown. Zthar realized with growing horror that Rodriguez meant exactly what he said. In 20 seconds, the Vorthax would be fighting for their lives. 19 seconds. I said we surrender, Zthar shouted. 18 seconds. Lieutenant Vascator looked up from his station. Captain, the human ship is moving. It's coming directly at us. On the main screen, they could see the UES Defiant accelerating toward them, but something was wrong with what they were seeing. The ship was moving faster than their sensors said was possible. It was changing direction without slowing down. It was flying like no ship should be able to fly. 17 seconds. All ships evasive maneuvers, Zthar ordered. Sir, our engines won't respond, called the navigator. We're locked out of the control systems. 16 seconds. The Defiant was getting closer. As it approached, Zthar could see that he had been wrong about the human ship. What he thought was an old, worn hull was actually advanced armor that absorbed sensor readings. What he thought were simple laser cannons were weapons he did not recognize at all. 15 seconds. Please, Zthar said into his communicator. We understand. We will leave immediately. 14 seconds. Captain Rodriguez's voice remained perfectly calm, as if he were counting down to a routine training exercise instead of a battle that would decide the fate of 3 ships and their crews. 13 seconds. On his tactical display, Zthar watched, in amazement as the human ship performed maneuvers that should have been impossible. It spun around asteroids like they were not there. It changed course so quickly that it seemed to teleport from one position to another. 12 seconds. What kind of engines do they have? Whispered his engineering officer. 11 seconds. The answer came when the asteroid field around them suddenly came alive. What they had thought were rocks began moving with purpose. Energy readings spiked as hidden weapons powered up. The space around Haven's Rest was filled with ships that had been invisible moments before. 10 seconds. Zthar stared at his sensors in disbelief. There were dozens of human vessels hidden among the asteroids. Some were disguised as rocks. Others were so small they looked like debris. Still others were simply invisible until they chose to reveal themselves. 9 seconds. How many ships are there? Vascator asked in a shaking voice. 8 seconds. The tactical display was lighting, up with new contacts every second. Destroyers, cruisers, ships so small they could barely hold a crew. Ships so large they dwarfed the Vorthac vessels. 7 seconds. This isn't a mining colony, Zthar realized. It's a military base disguised as a mining colony. 6 seconds. Every piece of equipment in the asteroid field was showing energy. Signatures now. Mining platforms that were actually weapons platforms. Cargo ships that were actually warships. Even the asteroids themselves had weapons hidden inside them. 5 seconds. We walked into a trap, Vascator said. 4 seconds. Zthar opened a communication channel. Captain Rodriguez, we surrender completely. We will leave human space and never return. 3 seconds. Please, we understand now. We made a mistake. 2 seconds. The Defiant was now close enough that they could see its hull markings. Instead of battle scars, Zthar saw carefully painted symbols that meant nothing to him, but looked important to humans. 1 second. Time's up, Rodriguez said. The Defiant did not fire massive energy beams. It did not launch nuclear missiles. Instead, it fired small, precise shots that hit exactly where the human captain wanted them to hit. The first shot disabled the Void Stalker's main communications array. The second shot destroyed a sensor cluster. The third shot took out one of the ship's engines. Each shot was perfectly placed. Each shot hit a specific system without damaging anything around it. The humans were not trying to destroy the Vorac ships. They were performing surgery on them. "Return fire!" Zthar ordered. "I can't, Captain," his weapons officer replied. "Our targeting system is aiming our guns at empty space. On the Blood Moon, Captain Skelvar was having the same problem. His weapons would not obey his commands. When he tried to fire at the human ship, his cannons pointed at asteroids instead. The humans had not just hacked their computer systems, they had taken complete control of them. The Defiant danced between the Vorac ships like a predator playing with wounded prey. Every few seconds, it would fire another precise shot. Communications equipment, sensor arrays, engine components, shield generators. The human ship was systematically dismantling the Vorac fleet, piece by piece. "This is impossible," Grelthak said from his engineering station. "Their ship is too small to have this much firepower." But Zthar was beginning to understand. The Defiant was not fighting alone. The hidden ships in the asteroid field were also firing, their shots coordinated perfectly with the lead human vessel. It only looked like one ship was doing all the damage. "Captain," Vascator called out, "the Sharp Fang is trying to escape." On the tactical display, they could see their smallest ship attempting to flee the battle. It had turned away from the asteroid field and was accelerating toward the edge of the system. For a moment, it looked like the Sharp Fang might get away. Then it simply vanished. Not destroyed, not damaged, just gone. 1 second it was there on their sensors, moving at full speed. The next second, there was nothing but empty space where it had been. "What happened to it?" Zthar asked. "I don't know, Captain. It just disappeared." There was no explosion, no debris field, no energy signature of weapons fire. The Sharp Fang had been erased from existence as if it had never been there at all. The remaining Vorac crews realized they were not fighting a normal enemy. They were fighting something far beyond their understanding. Captain Rodriguez's voice came over the communication channel again. "Vorac vessels, you now have a choice. Surrender and be escorted out of human space alive, or continue this fight and join your companion ship wherever it went." Zthar looked around his bridge. His crew was staring at him with fear in their eyes. These were warriors who had conquered star systems. They had never shown fear before in their entire lives, but they had never faced anything like this. "What are you?" Zthar asked. "We're humans," Rodriguez replied simply, "and you're trespassing." The Defiant continued its deadly dance around the Vorac ships. More precise shots disabled more systems. The aliens were becoming completely helpless. "I don't understand," Zthar said. "Our intelligence said your technology was primitive. Our spies said you had no real military." "Your spies saw what we wanted them to see," came a new voice on the communication channel. A different ship appeared on the Vorac sensors. This one was larger than the Defiant, painted in dark colors that seemed to absorb light. It moved without making any sound that their instruments could detect. "This is Commander Chen of the UES Nightfall. We've been following you since you crossed our border." Zthar stared at the new ship. "Following us? Impossible. We would have detected you." "Would you? Check your sensor logs for the past 12 hours. Look for the phantom contacts your crew kept reporting." Vascator quickly pulled up the sensor records. His face went pale as he studied the data. "Captain, those phantom contacts, they match the energy signature of the Nightfall. It was really there. It was following us the whole time. Chen's voice continued. Every malfunction you experienced, every system failure, every targeting error, that was us. We've been inside your computer network since you entered our space. The truth hit Zthar like a physical blow. The humans had not been caught, off guard by the Vorac invasion. They had been waiting for it. They had prepared for it. They had turned the entire border region into an elaborate trap. Your species made first contact by invading our territory and threatening our civilians, Chen explained. This is your one chance to leave with evidence of what happens to uninvited guests. Around them, more human ships were becoming visible, dozens of them, maybe hundreds. They had been hidden throughout the system, waiting for the perfect moment to reveal themselves. Zthar realized that Haven's Rest was not just a disguised military base. The entire region was a fortress. Every asteroid could hide weapons. Every piece of space debris could be a sensor probe. Every innocent-looking cargo ship could be a warship in disguise. The humans had turned space itself into a weapon. Next time we meet, Chen continued, we'll assume you're not interested in survival. The psychological impact was devastating. The Voracs had built their empire on the belief that they were the strongest species in the galaxy. They had conquered everyone they met through superior technology and warrior spirit. But the humans had just demonstrated that technology and warrior spirit meant nothing if your enemy controlled the battlefield completely. How long have you been preparing for this? Zthar asked. Decades, Rodriguez answered. We've been watching aggressive species like yours expand across the galaxy. We knew someone would eventually try to invade human space. We've been ready. The captain of the Void Stalker felt his worldview crumbling. Everything the Voracs believed about human weakness was wrong. Everything their spies had reported was false. Everything their intelligence services had told them was a lie. The humans had not been too weak to defend themselves. They had been too smart to show their true strength. What happens now? Zthar asked. Now you make a choice, Chen replied. You can return home with proof of what you found here. Or you can stay and see what other surprises we have prepared for uninvited guests. Zthar looked at his ruined ship. Half his systems were offline. His weapons were useless. His engines barely functioned. He was completely at the mercy of beings he had thought were harmless. The proud Vorac captain faced the most difficult decision of his military career. He could fight to the death and maintain his honor according to Vorac tradition, or he could live with the shame of surrender and return home to warn his people about the mistake they had almost made. Around him, space was filled with human ships that had appeared from nowhere. Each one was a reminder that his species had underestimated their enemy completely. For the first time in Vorac history, retreat was the only rational choice. Captain Zthar stood in the ruins of what had once been the bridge of a mighty warship. Sparks flew from damaged control panels. Emergency lights cast red shadows across the faces of his crew. The proud Void Stalker was now little more than a crippled hulk floating in space. Around his ship, dozens of human vessels maintained a perfect formation. They did not threaten or posture. They simply waited with the patience of predators who knew their prey had nowhere to run. Captain, Lieutenant Vascator said quietly, we're receiving another transmission from the human commander. Zthar nodded wearily. Put her through. Commander Chen's face appeared on the main screen. She was a middle-aged human woman with short gray hair and calm eyes. She wore a simple military uniform with no decorations or medals. She looked like someone who had seen many battles and won most of them. Captain Zthar, she said in a professional tone, you have 10 minutes to make your decision. Surrender and leave human space alive, or continue fighting and share the fate of your escort vessel. The Vorac captain looked at his tactical display. The sharp fang was still missing. No wreckage, no energy signature, no trace that it had ever existed. "What did you do to the sharp fang?" he asked. "We removed it," Chen replied simply. "No further explanation is necessary." Zthar felt a chill run down his spine. The humans spoke about destroying a warship the way they might talk about throwing away garbage. Casual, efficient, without emotion. "Commander Chen," he said carefully, "my species has a tradition of fighting to the death rather than surrendering. It is a matter of honor." "I understand," Chen said. "Many species have such traditions. Most of them are extinct now." The words hit like a physical blow. Zthar realized that the humans were not making empty threats. They had done this before. They had faced other aggressive species, and those species were no longer around to tell their stories. "You're saying you've destroyed entire civilizations?" Zthar asked in horror. Chen's expression did not change. "I'm saying that species which cannot adapt their traditions to new realities tend to disappear from the galaxy. Your choice, Captain." On the communication channel, they could hear fragments of conversation between human ships. The aliens expected to hear celebration or boasting. Instead, they heard cold efficiency. Target package secured. Minimal resource expenditure. Threat assessment, moderate. Begin preparation for cleanup operations. The humans were discussing the battle the way bureaucrats might discuss filing paperwork. To them, the destruction of 3 Vorac warships was not a victory to celebrate. It was just another day at work. This was not even a real fight to them, Zthar realized. Captain Rodriguez's voice joined the conversation. "Captain Zthar, I want you to understand something important. What you've seen today is not our military at full strength. This is Border Patrol. This is the minimum force we deploy against uninvited guests." The Vorac captain stared at the human ships surrounding him. "You're saying this is not your main fleet?" "This is one patrol group in one small sector of space," Rodriguez confirmed. "We have thousands of such groups spread across human territory, and behind them we have forces you cannot imagine." Zthar tried to process this information. If what the humans were saying was true, then the Vorac Hegemony had not encountered humanity's military. They had encountered something more like a police force. "Captain," Grelthak called from his engineering station, "I'm detecting massive energy buildups throughout the system. More ships are arriving." On the tactical display, new contacts were appearing. These ships were larger than anything they had seen before. Some were the size of small moons. Others seemed to stretch across kilometers of space. "Those are our reinforcements," Chen explained. "Standard procedure when dealing with unknown aggressive species. We like to be thorough." The reinforcements took positions around the asteroid field. They did not threaten or posture. They simply waited, adding their firepower to the already overwhelming force surrounding the Voracs. "How many ships do you have?" Zthar asked. "Enough," Chen replied. The captain of the Void Stalker began to understand the scope of his mistake. The Vorac Hegemony had conquered 17 star systems over 50 years. They thought this made them a galactic power, but the humans had been preparing for interstellar warfare for much longer. They had built not just a military, but an entire civilization designed for conflict. Every colony was a fortress. Every civilian was a potential soldier. Every piece of technology was a weapon waiting to be activated. "Captain," his communications officer said urgently, "I'm picking up transmissions from Vorac space. The Hegemony is trying to contact us." "Put them through." The face of High Admiral Kreshatar appeared on a secondary screen. He was the supreme commander of all Vorac military forces, a legendary warrior who had personally led the conquest of 7 star systems. "Captain Zthar, report your status immediately. We have lost contact with your escort vessels." Zthar looked at the Admiral, then at the human ships surrounding him. How could he explain what had happened? How could he make his superiors understand that everything they believed about human weakness was wrong? "Admiral," he said slowly, We have encountered unexpected resistance. The humans are not what our intelligence reports claimed. Explain. Yourself, Captain. Are you saying that a few human mining ships defeated 3 Vorac warships? No, sir. I'm saying that there are no human mining ships. Everything here is military. The entire border region is one massive fortress. Admiral. Kreshtar's expression grew angry. That's impossible! Our spies have confirmed that human space is poorly defended. Your spies saw what the humans wanted them to see, Commander Chen interjected, her voice carrying over the communication channel. The Admiral's eyes widened as he realized that the humans were listening to their private military communications. Who is this? Commander Sarah Chen, United Earth Space Navy. I wanted to introduce myself before your captain makes his final decision. What decision? Chen's expression remained perfectly calm. Whether your ships leave our space alive or whether they join the rest of our uninvited guests in whatever dimension we sent them to. Admiral Kreshtar looked confused. The rest of your uninvited guests? Oh, yes, Chen said. You're not the first aggressive species to test our defenses. The Zelkari Dominion tried to invade human space 3 years ago. The Makroth Empire attempted. Conquest 2 years before that. We have quite a collection of vessels from species that thought we looked like easy prey. The implication was clear. Other powerful civilizations had made the same mistake as the Vorthax. None of them had survived the experience. You're bluffing, the Admiral said, but his voice lacked conviction. Captain Rodriguez, Chen said, please show our guests the memorial garden. The main screen switched to an external view of one of the larger human ships. Its hull was covered with what looked like artwork, geometric patterns and symbols in hundreds of different styles. Each of those symbols represents a ship we've destroyed, Rodriguez explained. Each pattern represents a different species that chose fighting over leaving. We keep them as a reminder that the galaxy is full of civilizations that thought they were stronger than they actually were. Zthar studied the hull markings. There were thousands of them, thousands of ships from dozens of different species. The humans had been fighting and winning against aggressive aliens for decades. The Vorac Hegemony has conquered 17 star systems, Admiral Kreshtar said with forced pride. Congratulations, Chen replied. The species that created those patterns conquered an average of 32 systems each before they met us. It didn't help them. The psychological warfare was devastating. Everything the Vorthax believed about their own strength was being systematically destroyed. They were not galactic conquerors. They were just the latest in a long line of aggressive species that had overestimated their own capabilities. What do you want from us? Zthar asked. Nothing, Chen said. We want you to leave our space and never come back uninvited. That's all we've ever wanted. And if we refuse, then you'll become new patterns on our memorial ship. Zthar looked around his ruined bridge. His crew was staring at him with fear and confusion. These were warriors who had never known defeat. They had never faced an enemy they could not overcome through superior firepower and aggressive tactics. But the humans had made it clear that firepower and aggression meant nothing against properly prepared defenses. Admiral, Zthar said to his commander, I recommend immediate withdrawal from human space. We are completely outmatched. Unacceptable, Kreshtar replied. The Vorthac military does not retreat. We fight until victory or death. Then you're choosing death, Chen observed. Captain Zthar, you have 5 minutes to decide whether you follow your admiral's orders or save your crew. The captain of the Void Stalker faced an impossible choice. Vorthac military tradition demanded that he fight to the death rather than surrender. But Vorthac's survival instinct demanded that he retreat before his entire species made the same mistake. Admiral, he said carefully, if we continue this attack, the hegemony will declare war on humanity. Are we prepared for that conflict? Of course we are. The humans cannot possibly have the resources to fight a real war against a galactic power. Chen smiled for the first time since the conversation began. Admiral, I think you should speak. With some of your intelligence officers, ask them how many star systems humanity actually controls. Ask them how large our population really is. Ask them how long we've been preparing for exactly this kind of war. Our intelligence is accurate, the Admiral insisted. Your intelligence is exactly what we wanted you to believe, Chen corrected. We've been feeding false information to your spies for years. We wanted aggressive species like yours to think we were weak and poorly defended. Why? Because it makes you overconfident. It makes you attack with insufficient force. It makes you easy to defeat. Zthar realized with growing horror that the human strategy was far more sophisticated than simple military preparation. They had manipulated their enemies into defeating themselves. The humans wanted us to attack, he whispered. Of course we did, Chen confirmed. How else were we supposed to demonstrate to the galaxy that human space is not a safe target for expansion? We needed examples. You volunteered to become one. The captain looked at his tactical display. His ship was surrounded. His weapons were offline. His crew was demoralized, and now he was learning that the entire invasion had been orchestrated by the humans themselves. The Vorac Hegemony had not stumbled into a trap. They had been carefully guided into one. 2 minutes, Captain, Chen announced. Zthar closed his eyes and made the hardest decision of his military career. 3 weeks later, Captain Zthar stood before the High Council of the Vorac Hegemony. The great chamber was filled with the most powerful military leaders in Vorac space, hundreds of warriors who had conquered star systems and enslaved. Entire species waited to hear his report. The captain's ship, the Void Stalker, was still being repaired in orbital shipyards above the Hegemony capital world. Its hull was scarred with precise burn marks where human weapons had surgically removed critical systems. The damage patterns told a story that no Vorac engineer wanted to believe. Captain Zthar, said Supreme Commander Thisarac from his throne at the center of the chamber. You were sent to scout human space and evaluate their defenses. Instead, you return with wild stories of defeat and surrender. Explain yourself. Zthar activated the holographic display he had prepared. Images from the battle appeared in the air above the assembled council. They showed human ships appearing from nowhere, Vorac vessels helpless against electronic warfare, and the mysterious disappearance of the Sharp Fang. Honored leaders, he began. Everything our intelligence services told us about human military capability was wrong. They are not weak. They are not scattered. They are not unprepared for war. Murmurs of disbelief ran through the chamber. General Krexthul, the conqueror of the Zalanti worlds, stood to speak. Captain, are you seriously claiming that a few human patrol ships defeated 3 Vorac warships? Our vessels are the most advanced in the galaxy. No, sir. I am claiming that what we thought were a few patrol ships was actually a massive military installation disguised as a mining colony. The entire border region is fortified beyond anything we have ever encountered. Zthar played the recording of his conversation with Commander Chen. The assembled warriors listened in growing amazement as the human officer casually described destroying entire species that had tried to invade human space. This could be elaborate deception, suggested Admiral Vorthon. Humans are known to be skilled at lying. Then explain this, Zthar said. He activated a new section of the display. It showed detailed sensor readings from the battle, including the precise moments when human weapons had disabled Vorac systems. The data was undeniable. Their weapons hit exactly where they wanted them to hit, he explained. They could have destroyed our ships completely, but they chose not to. They were demonstrating their capabilities, not fighting for survival. Supreme Commander Thisarac leaned forward on his throne. You are saying they were toying with us? I am saying they were teaching us a lesson. They wanted us to return home, with proof of what happens to uninvited guests in human space. The chamber fell silent. The idea that any species could treat Vorac warriors as students to be educated rather than enemies to be crushed was almost incomprehensible. "Show us the intelligence data you gathered," ordered General Krexthul. Zthar played the recordings of human military communications during the battle. The council listened to the casual, professional tone of human officers discussing the destruction of Vorac forces. "Target package secured. Minimal resource expenditure. Threat assessment, moderate." "They spoke about defeating us the way clerks might discuss filing reports," Zthar explained. "This was not a desperate battle for them. It was routine border patrol duty." Intelligence Director Slithek stepped forward. He was responsible for gathering information about human military capabilities. His reputation depended on the accuracy of his reports. "Captain, our agents have spent years infiltrating human space. They have confirmed repeatedly that human defenses are minimal and their technology is primitive." "Your agents saw what the humans wanted them to see," Zthar replied. "Commander Chen told me directly that they have been feeding false information to our spies for years." He played Chen's recorded words. "We've been feeding false information to your spies for years. We wanted aggressive species like yours to think we were weak and poorly defended." The intelligence director's face went pale. If the humans had been deliberately deceiving Vorac intelligence, then every piece of information they had about human capabilities was worthless. "This is troubling," Slithek admitted. "It gets worse," Zthar said. "They claim to have thousands of patrol groups like the one we encountered, and those are just their border guards." He showed the council images of the massive human reinforcement. Ships that had arrived during the battle, vessels the size of small moons, bristling with weapons and carrying unknown numbers of fighters. "If their border patrol consists of fleets this large," Zthar continued, "what do you think their main military looks like?" For the first time in the meeting, Supreme Commander Thisharak looked uncertain. He had built his career on the belief that Vorac military power was superior to anything in the galaxy. The idea that they might have encountered something stronger was almost unthinkable. "Even if the humans are more capable than we believed," he said slowly, "they cannot possibly match the full might of the hegemony. We control 17 star systems. We have thousands of warships. We have billions of warriors." Commander Chen suggested I ask our intelligence services how many star systems humanity actually controls, Zthar said. "Director Slithek, what is your current estimate?" The intelligence director consulted his datapad. "Approximately 40 to 50 systems, based on our latest surveys." "And how confident are you in that number?" Slithek hesitated. "Given what we have just learned about human deception capabilities, not very confident." Zthar nodded grimly. "I believe the humans control far more territory than we realize. I believe their population is much larger than our estimates, and I believe they have been preparing for galactic warfare far longer than any of us suspected." He showed the council the recording of the human memorial ship, its hull covered with thousands of symbols representing destroyed vessels from dozens of species. Each of those patterns represents a civilization that thought it was stronger than humanity, he explained. Each symbol is a reminder that the galaxy is full of extinct species that made the same mistake we almost made. The chamber erupted in angry voices. Some council members refused to believe that any species could be more powerful than the Voracs. Others demanded immediate mobilization for a full-scale war against humanity. Still others suggested that perhaps negotiation might be wiser than confrontation. Supreme Commander Thisharak raised his hand for silence. "Captain Zthar, what is your personal recommendation?" The captain took a deep breath. What he was about to say would end his military career, but it might save his entire species. "I recommend immediate peace negotiations with humanity. I recommend formal diplomatic contact. I recommend that we become the first species to apologize to the humans for trespassing in their space." The chamber exploded in outrage. "Apologize?" The Vorac Hegemony did not apologize to anyone. They conquered or they destroyed. They did not bow to other species. You are suggesting surrender without a fight, accused General Krexthul. I am suggesting survival, Zthar replied. The humans were not defending their space from us. They were protecting us from what they could have done instead. He let that sink in for a moment before continuing. They could have destroyed our ships without warning. They could have invaded Vorthak space in retaliation. They could have made examples of our colonies the way they apparently made examples of other aggressive species. Instead, they sent us home with a message. They demonstrated their capabilities without using their full strength. They showed us exactly what would happen if we continued on our current path. Supreme Commander Thissarak studied the tactical displays showing the battle. The precision of human attacks, the sophistication of their technology, the casual efficiency of their operations. It painted a picture of military superiority that was hard to deny. What kind of message do you think they wanted us to deliver? He asked. That human space has an open-door policy, Zthar said. For diplomats, traders, and friends. But for uninvited guests who come with hostile intent, that door only swings one way. The captain activated one final hologram. It showed a map of local galactic space with human territory marked in blue. But instead of the small cluster of systems they had expected, the blue area covered nearly a quarter of the galaxy. This is what I believe human space actually looks like, he said, based on ship deployment patterns, communication intercepts, and energy signatures detected during our retreat. The council stared at the map in shock. If Zthar's estimates were correct, humanity was not a minor species ripe for conquest. They were already the dominant power in this region of the galaxy. How did we not know this? Whispered Admiral Vorthan. Because they didn't want us to know, Zthar replied. Because they prefer to be underestimated. Because they understand that the best defense often appears to be no defense at all. Intelligence Director Slithek was frantically checking his data files. If these estimates are correct, then human military forces could outnumber ours by factors of 10 to 1 or more. Which brings me to my final recommendation, Zthar said. We need to send ambassadors, not admirals. We need to request permission to establish trade relations and diplomatic contact. We need to do everything we can to avoid giving them a reason to consider us a threat. Supreme Commander Thissarak sat back in his throne, processing everything he had heard. The Vorac Hegemony had built its empire through conquest and intimidation. The idea of seeking peaceful relations with a potential enemy was foreign to their entire culture. But the alternative might be the extinction of their species. Captain, he said finally, you are asking us to abandon everything we believe about Vorthak's strength and superiority. No, sir. I am asking us to learn the difference between strength and wisdom. The humans are strong enough to destroy us completely, but wise enough to give us a chance to choose a different path. The council debated for hours. Some members still wanted war. Others demanded more intelligence gathering. But slowly, a consensus began to emerge. The Vorac Hegemony would swallow its pride and request formal diplomatic contact with humanity. Within days, the news spread beyond the council chamber. Across Vorthak space, military units stood down from combat readiness. Shipyards that had been preparing for war began retooling for peaceful exploration. And throughout the galaxy, other aggressive species quietly began reconsidering their own expansion plans. The message was spreading. Human space was no longer considered a safe target for conquest. Captain Zthar retired from military service a month later. He spent his remaining years writing detailed reports about human military capabilities and strategic thinking. His work became required reading at every Vorthak military academy. The final words of his memoir would be quoted by military historians for generations. We went looking for easy prey and found apex predators. We went seeking conquest and found teachers. We went to spread fear and learned the meaning of respect. The humans gave us the greatest gift any species can receive, the chance to choose wisdom over destruction. I pray that future generations of Vorthax will remember this lesson and never again mistake restraint for weakness. The galaxy was a safer place because one captain chose to deliver an uncomfortable truth rather than a comfortable lie. And, in human space, the Border Patrol continued its quiet watch, ready to teach the same lesson to the next species that might need to learn it.